Hey everybody, quick programming note. This episode was recorded last year before we changed the format of our show slightly, so you might notice things are a little bit different, but we thought the content was just too good not to share. Without further ado, enjoy our review of the anime film Paprika from Satoshi Kon. Not The Spice, but The Spice is also good. So this is not a review of The Spice though. It's a review of the movie, the anime movie. Okay, here we go.
Who needs drugs when you can just watch this anime? Extremely overrated.
The first part was dead on. I don't know about the second part.
First of all, I'm sure many of you are finding out about this anime film now because of Christopher Nolan's latest film, Inception.
Ooh.
I saw the trailer for this and thought it looked pretty awesome. And even some of the visual similarities to Inception, you know, the mirror shattering scene and the hallway scene. Watching both films, Inception is not a ripoff of Paprika. So get over it.
Nerds.
I'd like to know what kind of drugs the creator of this film was on, because this film is one giant mess. I am not kidding.
All of the drugs.
I'm dead serious.
That was a 1-star review of Paprika from IMDb.
It's anime, but drugs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I am your host, Andrew, joined as always by Ryan.
Hey, hello.
And Steven.
Hi there.
This week we are talking about Paprika, the 2006 film directed by Satoshi Kon.
That's also anime drugs, apparently.
Apparently, yeah.
Spices and drugs. Or wait, is spice is a drug?
Yeah.
The spice must flow.
The spice must flow.
So before we kind of get into the film, though, we're going to talk a little bit about other films that I'm going to say, like, use the plot against the viewer. Where they basically, they kind of obfuscate information. They make it kind of all over the place for it's hard for you to guess kind of what's going on.
They mess with your mind.
Yeah, they mess with your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm curious, kind of what we got picks going on here. Let's start out with Ryan.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I came really close to picking Perfect Blue, another Satoshi Kon film. I thought that was too on the nose.
Yeah.
So I went with the live action version, which I call Black Swan.
With Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman, 2010, directed by Darren Aronofsky. Mila Kunis is in it, Vincent Cassel.
Mm.
Great movie. I love Black Swan. I'm a big Darren Aronofsky fan, huge Natalie Portman fan.
Yeah.
And it's very similar, if you've seen Perfect Blue, to that kind of psychological thriller horror movie where like you don't know what's real, and the main character is kind of like losing her grip on reality throughout it. And the way they play with the plot and the camera work and the editing and everything kind of like leaves you guessing of like what is going on.
Yeah.
And in essence, she's a ballerina, and it kind of follows the New York ballet scene and like all the chaos that goes along with it. And I don't want to give too much away because I really think it's one of those movies, the less you know going in, the better.
Yeah.
But I remember when I saw this movie in theaters, I watched it right when it came out. And I went by myself because I was just excited about it. I had just moved.
And you had already seen Perfect Blue before this, right?
Yes, before that, yeah. And I came out of the theater and I felt crazy. Like I felt like I had this moment. I was like, I think I'm losing my mind.
Yeah. So
that one for me is definitely when you talk about, movies or media that like messes with your head or like kind of plays with your perception of what's real, that one always pops up.
Yeah. Steven?
So
I have a feeling you're going to take mine. I don't know, maybe.
Do it. Steal it.
Oh, I don't know. I went through a list of these, right? And I tried to throw out the obvious, the more obvious ones. Because honestly, when you look at lists of movies and TV shows that mess with your head, there's a pretty big list, and a lot of them have done really well. Like Inception made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff like Paprika did really well. It's really critically acclaimed. So I was like throwing out, like Fight Club.
Yep.
And a couple others. I was just like, no, I just don't want to go with this. So or like Matrix, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to go with Matrix. So what I landed on is Donnie Darko.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
So
another Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah. 2001 independent science fiction psychological thriller.
Yep.
It's an ominous story of a troubled teenager, Donnie Darko, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Young
Jake.
Yeah.
Who starts seeing visions of Frank, a rabbit-like monster, who warns him that the world will end in 28 days. I love how quickly this summary twists, too. Soon, Donnie starts manipulating Frank to commit heinous crimes What? The movie itself is chillingly ominous and menacing. It's like watching clouds gathering right before the storm of the century. And when you think it is basically about the teenage angst that you yourself have felt when growing up, it all starts to feel even eerier. So this, this feels really cut and dry for a fair amount of the film, and then you get towards the end, and you're just like, "What?"
It just goes crazy.
What? And
This movie, I remember when it came out in high school, was every edgelord's.
Oh,
oh
yeah,
my
dream.
gosh, yes.
Yeah, this is the high school edgelords, like holy grail
uh-huh.
film.
Which frustrated me as someone who was not an edgelord, but just really liked good movies. Because I'm like, this is a good movie. And they're like, I don't know, I'm not watching that movie. Weird Kyle over there likes that movie. I'm like,
Kyle in the trench coat.
Kyle ruined it
it's
for
more
everyone.
than just weird Kyle. I like it too. Oh, great. No, not that way.
So are you weird too?
That's like you getting caught like watching a weird anime, and you're just like, it's not like this all the time. And every time they come in, it's just like some.
Yeah.
Your mom's like, well, let me see
The
what
tentacles represent society.
let me see what my boy is into these. Oh God. No, I swear it's not like this. It's only like this for
You're going back to counseling.
a
What?
third of this. But yeah, Donnie Darko, when it came out in high school was definitely, every trench coat wearing kid's dream. If you were a huge fan of The Matrix, you were a huge fan of this.
Yeah.
There was a Halloween, like a
reasons.
few years after it came out, where everybody was the rabbit.
Everybody was
It wasn't the same year. It was like it had to have a couple years to like get cult
It's
status.
a bit of a cult classic.
Yeah.
It is definitely is. I didn't see it until I was in college, just on DVD or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the edgelords were all the guy down the hall. He's up to no good. I don't know if I should go see this movie or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's good. I don't know. Again, I jumped over a lot of really obvious picks for this because, and it doesn't feel like it was that obscure either. Because I feel like this movie, everyone knows what this movie is, right?
Yeah,
surely. But if you don't somehow, and you're interested in mind bending things, go for it.
Go for
Definitely
it.
check
Yeah.
it out. Yeah.
So I stayed on brand here. I didn't pick Perfect Blue.
Aww.
I really wanted to. It's probably my favorite anime film of all time.
Oh wow.
I don't know why. I just like it's the only horror film that I like that like genuinely does give you like a really weird like you kind of feel you're going insane throughout the whole film.
Yeah,
You don't know what's reality, what's not. But I did stay on brand, and I did go with the Satoshi Kon film.
Millennium Actress.
Millennium Actress.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I looked at that and I was like, nah, Andrew's gonna do that.
I think Millennium Actress probably is my favorite Satoshi Kon film,
that's
actually.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fantastic film.
I love it. Yeah.
So 2001, in this animated movie, filmmaker Genya Tachibana begins work on a documentary about a famed actress. And now well into old age, Chiyoko has become reclusive and shy about any publicity. She eventually warms up to Tachibana and starts to relate, kind of like talk about her life story, kind of like Titanic style, where, she's kind of just explaining things. But you never really know throughout the film whether it's a movie scene or her real life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it goes back and forth in between, obviously like them doing the documentary but then like they're kind of in the scenes with her whenever she's explaining things. It's a fantastic film.
If you care at all about cinematography and editing and like that, you need to watch that movie. It is a masterclass in scene transitions, in like
I think any Satoshi Kon film is a masterclass in scene transitions.
Specifically, Millennium Actress does it better than any of the other ones to me.
I don't know.
I think it does it better than Paprika. Like, Paprika's really good with that. Spoiler, getting ahead
Those
here.
are some bold words.
I really, to me, Millennium Actress does it
It's
the
a
best.
phenomenal film. We actually, they did a re-release of it in theaters a couple years ago.
Yeah, we went and saw it.
And we went and saw it in theaters, and it was...
That's great.
Oh, man, it was great.
It's great. It's a good movie.
Talking through this, I realized something that wasn't on a list I was looking at that I could have used. Big Fish.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's another good
With
one.
young Ian McGregor.
Yeah, I mean that's already a great selling point, right?
Yep. I mean, Ian McGregor's a dreamboat,
I mean, but he's also
It's
just a
his
great
eyes
actor.
and
Just
his
get him
smile.
on, just get him on
No, it's
screen.
his singing voice, man. Moulin
everything.
Rouge.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Andrew loves him some Moulin Rouge.
I do. I love that film.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that is not what we're talking about
No,
today.
we're talking about Paprika, the 2006 film from Satoshi Kon. We've already mentioned two of his other films that would have come up. He loves obfuscation and blending reality to dreams to mental health. And I mean, it's wild. Like, this guy is nuts. And it's sad that he only had 4 films and a TV series before he passed away.
Unfortunately passed away.
Yeah. And he was a successful mangaka before he started directing films. but we'll get into that here in a second. So here's some information about Paprika. So 2006 film, Satoshi Kon, I've already kind of talked about that, based on the novel by Yasutaka Tsutsui, animated by Studio Madhouse, which we've already done a review for another Studio Madhouse film.
Yeah, we're just a Studio Madhouse review cast.
It turns out that Studio Madhouse does some really fantastic films.
Really good stuff.
They do.
So they've also...
Random question, and you may not know this. Did Madhouse do all of Satoshi Kon's films? Or just this one?
They did... I don't know if they did Millennium Actress. I'm pretty sure they did Perfect Blue, and they did, obviously, Paprika.
Okay.
Keep talking, I'll find out.
Yeah. So Madhouse also did Girl Who Let Through Time, which is also a novel written by Yasutaka Tsutsui.
Oh, wow.
That's a great
He wrote it
film.
back in like 1967.
Dang, really?
Really? I didn't realize that.
So Tsutsui actually came to Satoshi Kon and convinced him to make this film, Paprika.
Nice.
And the music is by Susumu Hirasawa.
Millennium Actress is a Madhouse.
Oh, okay. Actually, that's probably why they could show each of the in the film. They have billboards of all the other films because they didn't have to buy the rights for them.
They had them. Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting going back to the author, right? So Tsutsui approached Satoshi Kon to create an anime version of his book.
Yeah.
Not generally, like Hollywood, they're just like, who can we pay to destroy his story?
Yeah.
This is the opposite.
Yeah, it's the opposite, and they actually have they had a really good working relationship. They were friends for a long time.
Yeah, the adaptation actually leaves out a lot of the technical details of the story.
Apparently, if he would have done it like page by page adaptation, it'd been really boring.
Yeah. Well, also that, very, very technical sci-fi, and he really went for just a visual approach.
Yeah.
But of course, Tsutsui is also a big fan and approval of it. So again, it's the reverse of what we see with Hollywood, which is always interesting to see.
Yeah, and so you have the music is done by Susumu Hirasawa, who is mostly famous for doing other Satoshi Kon films, but he also did the basically all the Berserk soundtrack from the 1997 one and the more recent films that came out on Netflix a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But other than, he's done a lot of stuff, but most of his things are basically Satoshi Kon films and Berserk.
He just has had a really good working relationship with Satoshi Kon.
Yeah. So here is just kind of a little bit of an overview for Paprika. So Dr. Atsuko Chiba works as a scientist by day and under a codename Paprika, go figure, is a dream detective at night. Atsuko and her colleagues are working on a device called the DC Mini, which is intended to help psychiatric patients, but in the wrong hands, it could destroy people's minds. When a prototype is stolen, Paprika springs into action to recover it before damage is done. And that is a very light...
That's a real fluffy view.
This film is wild on a lot of different levels.
Absolutely insane
in the best way.
Oh yeah, no, I actually really like this film. I think it's a bit much to watch, I'll say, on multiple viewings for me.
I mean, it's not one you want to watch like back to back.
Yeah,
you need to put a little space between.
I think all of Kon's films have such a heavy weight to a lot of it's just a lot.
Yeah,
like it's either a lot of story, a lot of
emotion, or a lot of with Perfect Blue, it's like just dark and it's just heavy, and you're like, I don't need to watch that again for a while. I'm glad I did, but I need to get up and walk around and think about happy things.
Yeah. So what are our general thoughts here for this film?
I mean, I like this movie a lot. I think it's an amazing example of what can be done in the field of animation. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
this was definitely a transitionary time too, when a lot of anime was moving from hand-drawn animation to CGI.
Yeah.
I won't say characters because there's no CGI characters in this, but it's CGI backgrounds and 3D cameras and everything. And I feel that there are some of those that do date the film quite hard.
Sure, for sure. And that may come up in our individual scoring. But I think it's the surreal imagery that I like the most because there's so many I think he really nailed the dreamlike warping and the changing of stuff and the people melting into each other and Everything is handled very, I don't know, it's very well animated and again, surrealist almost.
Yeah, and it's not like body horror melding except for like one or two scenes.
There's a couple.
It's like a Salvador Dali painting come to life.
It really is.
You know?
I loved how I saw a review of this where someone said the whimsical animations and the absurdist happenings may make this movie feel like it's meant for children, but the subject material is absolutely not for children.
Yeah, I don't think that's for kids.
Yeah, this is not a movie for kids.
If you see the big parade as just like kind of a one-off shot going down the street, I mean,
it looks fun.
That is ADHD enough for most kids to be like, yeah, a lot of bright colors and sound and absolute insanity.
Yeah, like true levels of just what is going on. But in a good way, it's not where I don't feel that the plot was too overly complex to follow. Now, towards the end, it does very much turn into an anime.
It has some issues. It goes very anime towards the end.
It feels like it shifts an entire gear.
Yeah.
And like that last little bit that
But I don't think that's enough to detract from watching the film.
No.
Because it's still really good, and it does have an emotionally resonant end. It's just not as satisfactory as I would have wanted it.
Yeah.
So it feels like a slight shift in tone almost.
Yeah.
Compared to the rest of it, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of satisfactory or should you watch it or not, do we have a score for this film?
Yes, we do. We gave it an 8.
That is pretty high praise.
Yeah, by our aggregate, which is spectacle, score, or spectacle, performance, score, plot, and entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah, we take all that, we blend it into everyone's dreams.
Yeah, well, no, we just put it in the DC Mini, we dream it up, try and, then we have a big collaborative dream.
Come up with a big parade.
Yeah, and then we just there it is.
There it is.
But yeah, no, I think 8's a very fair score for this film.
Yeah, it's got a few things that are going to show its age a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think for subject material and kind of the overall execution of what's going on, it's really well done.
Yeah, and it does a good job. Like I said, it is a film bathed in insanity, but it makes a lot of sense with what is happening once you kind of figure out the conceit of the show.
Yeah, and I don't think there is a bad Satoshi Kon film, but again, it's probably not my favorite.
Tokyo Godfathers is probably my least favorite out of his.
Yeah, I still haven't watched that one.
It's okay.
Well, see, there you go. That's why you haven't found one you didn't like.
So then by that...
But I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, well, that's the thing is like saying one of his films is not good is still like an A-.
So it's not that this movie isn't good. It's just like if you've never watched a Satoshi Kon film, I don't know that I would necessarily suggest this one first.
Probably Millennium Actress.
I was going to say, would you say Millennium Actress
probably
first?
Millennium
I think it's the safest one.
It is definitely the safest one.
Right. But this movie's still like, I don't know. I think it's definitely worth watching if you care anything about animation.
Yeah.
If you care anything about
cinematography.
If you care anything about just the premise, the sci-fi premise of like there is this thing that controls dreams and lets you tap into dreams and like what possibilities can be unlocked there. I think this movie does a great job of exploring all of that stuff.
All right. So, kind of while we're talking about that, who do you think this is for? Who is it not for?
I think the people that should watch this, obviously, if you're a fan of anime, any kind of anime movies, if you've watched, any of the
any other Madhouse
Miyazaki
film.
movies, I'm trying to think of someone who's like maybe like hasn't dipped their toes all the way into anime. This is like getting a little more advanced,
and it's a little bit more adult with
definitely
some of the content at the end of the film.
Well, especially I think some of the ways it looks at, like consciousness and these kinds of things, if you were a fan of like Ghost in the Shell and some of the themes they touch on there, this is the same kind of from a flip side, but it's the same approach to some of those ideas. So if you're familiar with that, then this is another easy step, just a step sideways, really.
Especially if you also really like cerebral thrillers. This is definitely one of those kind of murder mystery. It's not really a murder mystery for this one.
I mean, this one is really it feels pretty safe. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's really there's never a moment where you're like terrified for a character. I don't feel like
no, and it's a very small scale in the sense of the cast is really small.
Yeah,
so you don't have to go through and remember like a massive cast of characters or anything like that. There's not a lot of fighting. It's just. There's just a lot of obfuscation of the plot of like, this is what you think is happening. Actually,
this is happening. Yeah. I would say this is not for someone who like, if you're not ready for a crazy movie that's going to go all over the place. Like if you want just a very simple plot, something that you can just like relax and
Millennium
watch,
Actress.
Pop some popcorn.
Yeah,
sit
pop some
back,
popcorn,
Talk
then,
to your friend or whatever.
this is not it. And
Yeah.
if you're looking for something that's kid friendly, I would say this isn't
Definitely
that
not.
right
either.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else? Who's this not for?
No, I got nothing.
I mean,
you kind of hit it.
Okay.
yeah, it's hard to, if you're just like, hey, I just want to, pop some popcorn, sit down and just enjoy a little bit and kind of hang out. And then you're just like, what is this weird stuff? Because it gets pretty out there. It leans hard into anime tropes and the like, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
It's such a hard thing. It's so hard to describe. It's one of those things like I know it when I see it,
Yeah.
but it has a couple of moments where you're just like, anime.
Yeah.
When it's especially hard to quantify for someone who doesn't watch a lot of anime.
Yeah, because there's just certain tropes that just exist in the genre by itself.
Well, if you're someone who has watched other anime and you're just kind of generally like, well, there's a lot about anime I don't really like, this is absolutely not for you. Because everything about anime you don't like, it's right here.
It's probably going to be right here.
Condensed, packaged, and fully drugged out, coked out, ready to go.
Yeah.
So. Yes, sir. True satisfaction. That's what discipline brings. Even the court ladies dancing to frog flutes and drums had it, and so did the whirlwind of recycled paper. Computer graphics playing in my mind, and I like it. I don't support Technicolor parfaits and those snobby little petite fours that sit there uneaten. And my position on that is common knowledge to everyone in Oceania. Now the time has come to return to the great podcast in the sky, where content falls like stardust, and everyone's shaking around the shrine gates with the mailbox and the refrigerator, leading the Patreon bonus episodes. Anyone who is concerned about expiration dates, step aside now. No one gets in the way of spoilersandinternetpodcast.com.
All right, and we are back from whatever that was. And
Fun. A lot of fun.
Stephen jumped out of a window. It was crazy.
Sheer insanity.
So let's get into some scores. Or we'll start with spectacle, right?
Well, let's make it obvious. I didn't jump out a window. I jumped through a spoiler wall
Into
this. Spoilers.
Yes,
here.
yeah, there's going to be a lot of spoilers.
Abound.
Yep.
So we're already on the ground and you jumped out of a spoiler wall and like we caught you maybe?
Yeah, sure. We'll go with that. Why not?
Me and Ryan held out the banner to stop you from falling.
Yeah.
All right, so who wants to start?
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
I gave it a 9.
Yeah.
All right.
I just love Satoshi Kon's style.
His editing is just phenomenal.
His scene transitions are just amazing. I've already said that. I'll say it again. I'll say it the rest of my life.
You should transition to this scene where you say his scene transitions are amazing.
I should.
So at the first 2 minutes of the film, there are 9 match cuts.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
Perfect. Chef's kiss. Yeah, incredible hand-drawn animation. I think really for me, the only thing that dings it is the CG. I love hand-drawn stuff, and the CG implementation here is like a little too obvious for me.
A little ham-handed.
Every now and then. And I know it was that era when they were like in 2006, they were just like starting to kind of work a lot of that in there, but it's just enough to like annoy me where I'm like, man, I really just wanted that to be hand-drawn too. And I know why they did it. It's going down the hallway scenes and like the thing like
hand animating that would bankrupt Madhouse. It almost like it did with Redline.
And the only other thing I think that detracts even a little is in some of the like the parade scenes and towards the end, there's just a lot going on. And it's hard to parse everything. It's kind of like in Redline where the confetti and everything is everywhere and you're like, but really for me, it was just the CG bits every now and then kind of detracted from the overall awesome looking hand-drawn.
Yeah. Agreed.
What about you, Steven?
I also gave it a 9.
Wow.
I wrote here insane, absurdist, and beautiful because it is all those things all at once. And Ryan found it detracted on it for, it's just a riot of stuff going on. I'm like, this is perfect. This is exactly.
I mean, like you were the same way with Redline too. Like you wanted the insanity.
I want the insanity. Like just throw a whole bunch of stuff at me, and it's a riot of colors, movement. Stuff is because ultimately it's an expression of the subconscious, right? For dreams, so it needs to have a sheer insanity going on in there. And you just don't achieve that with just one or two things happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
No.
That pushes you maybe more into like the horror side of things.
Yeah.
Because we get some of that here. But yeah, and then like the scene where the detective is explaining film cuts in the film while the film is cutting.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just,
That's
chef's
very
kiss.
good.
So fun fact, he's actually cosplaying Akira Kurosawa
Mm-hmm.
in that scene, explaining in a theater to people watching the film
Yeah.
how
like the proper way to do
crosscuts
cuts.
work. Yeah.
And yeah, like
it's so meta. It's so
Yeah.
that's just it's fantastic.
I love it. Well, then they watch a movie in a movie theater that was being played in a movie theater.
Yeah.
Like just leaning into these kinds of things because it's already
It's a dream within a dream.
Yeah, well, it's already such an insane concept going on, and they just really leaned into it with these moments.
Yeah.
It was hard. I almost gave it a 10, but again, it's the CGI. It's too early an era. Madhouse at this moment, I think, was flirting with the concept of does Redline bankrupt us?
Probably.
So they had to hold back a little bit somewhere. They had to cut corners on one thing so that the other thing didn't just completely sink them.
Yeah.
So, but still, I mean, it's phenomenally good looking.
Yeah. So I also gave it a 9.
Hey, consensus.
For-
9.
Basically the exact same reason.
Hey, what do you
the
know?
CGI definitely did date it. I think the scene that always sticks out to me, I actually like whenever like we in the hallway scene when like everything kind of folds behind him. I think that's acceptable for it, just because like it is so weird.
Sure.
When everything's wibble wobbling.
Or whenever she jumps over the railway and then the whole screen kind of like folds in on
it's
her.
like it's cloth or whatever material.
That's okay. What actually got me was the little hanging pom-pom things in one of the scenes where you're like, oh man, that is CGI.
That
rough.
is obviously,
And then some of the matching 3D cameras that they do, where it's like just a pan into like a like where they turn around to a room. Like it's just like some of that was a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The one thing I really did enjoy outside of just the first like 10 minutes of the film of just back to back, just incredible cuts and editing was I really liked how Satoshi Kon uses color to kind of tell you that you're in a dream.
Oh yeah.
Where so like in the real world, everything's generally more muted.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a little bit more realistic colors, and then the second that you get into a dream, it's popping.
Yeah.
But then he uses that information to obfuscate a little bit later on. I was like, are you in a dream? Because it's still kind of colorful, but then it's not. Like and it keeps going back and forth, and it's really nice.
He almost teaches you the rules so he can break them.
Yeah.
But also when you have later in it when you have the dream is reality now, going to the parade going down the street, right? That's a sheer riot of color next to the very gray, simple, bland buildings, and like it fits now and like the people are kind of in shadow.
Yeah, and everyone's in shock of just like, oh my gosh,
and then
happening?
As they start like piling into the parade and climbing on top, like I am the emperor or whatever, like it becomes more insane and the colors punch up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just really small touches like that really add to how good and well crafted this film was visually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's just phenomenal.
It's one of those things where like, you talk about like the talent and the skill of like a filmmaker and a creator like Satoshi Kon, and that's where you really see like the proof of that is in like the little touches and the just the consistent vision throughout. You know what I mean? Like in other movies that are lesser than this, you'll see inconsistencies here and there. Like this is like
everyone's on model.
Everybody, everything's like consistent in the same stylistic crazy way.
Yeah, and the thing that I really like about Satoshi Kon is really just from his demeanor of being creative and being like that kind of headliner of like this is a Satoshi Kon film. And he said multiple times on different occasions in different interviews that he he's like I appreciate that everyone considers this my film, but this is not my film. This is an entire studio's film,
right?
That 100, 200 people worked on this, and they're all talented individuals. And I appreciate that you think it's my film, but it's also their film.
Yeah,
and he historically did treat his animators very well, and he took them out to lunch. He he treated them with respect, and that's not something that you see a lot of in the animation industry.
Yeah, you there to work.
Yeah, and and it really shows in the end product of like you just have this visually stunning and beautiful film that just absolutely nails the visual style like perfectly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's move on to performance. So what do we think here?
Steven,
You want me to
Steven?
start?
Yeah, you can start.
All right. I waffle here. I struggle with this. I ended up giving it an 8.
Yeah.
The main detractor for me is, and it's not necessarily the acting's fault,
Mm-hmm.
but there's not necessarily any moment that really, really has big emotional hits.
There's not a really big watershed moment in the film.
Right.
Yeah.
The biggest, most watershed moment is a very, very quiet moment towards the end with Dr. Chiba and
Tokita.
Tokita.
Dr. Tokita.
Yeah.
And it's a very quiet moment that's mostly
is.
played out through the animation and the way the characters move on screen, that it doesn't give the actors anything to do, really.
Yeah, and it's really emotionally resonant when it happens. It doesn't, they don't get to have like this massive speech and emotion and
Yeah, there's not there was
there's
no
not a
like
lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of
screaming or crying child here. I do think, because the actress for Dr. Chiba and Paprika,
yeah,
same person,
Megami Hayashibara.
right? But her mannerisms are such a shift between the two characters.
Mhm.
I did really, really like that. I think that was a really impressive job of just kind of not just the difference in dialogue and how they're going to talk, but how well she handles kind of the upbeat versus the very serious and almost dour.
Yeah, so the Megami, the main actress, she has been in a whole bunch of other stuff. In particular, she is Ainami Rei from Evangelion, who's one of the main characters and very quiet, very dour all the time. Then you have the inverse, which is also funny because the main character's name is Lena Inverse, and who is a brash and hot-headed character sorceress that basically from the show Slayers. It's basically just a defunct D&D party just going through and just being crazy, right?
Yeah.
And very 90s kind of show, Monster of the Week kind of stuff. But Megami has such a range of emotions that she can really pull from, and she's been in so many other things. She shows up in the latest Ghost in the Shell Netflix show, the CGI one that came out. Like she's in Pokemon every once in a while. I mean, she just shows up everywhere.
Did she play Kusanagi in that one?
No.
Is she a different character?
I think she's a different character.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like, she's just a fantastic actress.
She might actually be Kusanagi in that one.
It's possible. I haven't seen it. So.
It's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone does a great job. I think they do a really good job also mashing up the animation. So like what's being said, how it's being said, and why, and also the animation involved in that for like the characters' expressions hits really well.
Yeah.
And there's no moment where you're just kind of like, what? Except for all the moments in the movie where you're just like,
like
what? So.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you think?
I also gave it an 8.
Yeah.
I think for me, like, Paprika, Atsuko, Takeda, and Detective Konakawa are the standouts for me. Some of the other characters, like the chairman and even
the
Dr.
The chairman was a little dry.
They were kind of like
generic villain.
generic anime. You know what I mean?
Villain.
Like they kind of fell into like a trope, and they didn't really elevate their role beyond that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like those main 4 to me were like interesting, different characters. And I think anybody that lost their mind and started just spouting off stuff was fun.
When the chairman and Osanai are kind of like
merging into each other,
merging and fighting with each other, I think that was good.
That was
that's pretty good.
It's also just what
I think really, like, to me, why performance was an 8 was like there's never really a moment that gives any character the space to do anything.
Move it, yeah.
It's almost a showcase for the animators
Yeah.
to move the plot along with their anime. So like, shout out to the animators, because like the scene you're talking about with her
Chiba and Tokita.
Tokita, like that's a very touching scene, but it's because of the animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I waffled on performance because of that, because I was like, is the animation part of the performance? Like,
it kind of is.
It kind of is.
It can certainly count against it if what the character's face doesn't match the emotion.
Yeah, it doesn't match what's happening.
But I still think performance is at an 8 for me.
Yeah.
Andrew?
So I also waffled on a 7 and an 8. I ended up giving it an 8.
Look at this, all the way around. Hey.
9 to an 8.
And what really edged it for me was Megami is one of my favorite. Like, every time I hear her, I'm like, oh, yay. Because I know that she's going to really perform whatever she needs to do. But I really enjoyed Toru Furuya, who is Tokita. He is Amuro Rei's original voice actor. from Mobile Suit Gundam.
Okay.
From 1979 all the way up until I'm pretty sure recently. And I love his timbre. I don't know how to describe it. He really fits Dr. Tokita's character really well.
He does.
And I really liked him and Akio Otsuka, who is the detective.
Konakawa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was he's been in a lot of other stuff that I've seen too.
Mm-hmm.
And he just does a really good job at being that kind of stern.
The gruff, grizzle.
I'm pretty sure he's the dad in Death Note, who's the chief inspector or the chief of police.
Oh, man, he might be. You have to look that up.
Yeah, I'll look it up while we kind of go on. But yeah, I mean, everyone did a really good job, but I do agree that really the only big watershed moment we get is a nice quiet one. We don't get any like major...
tears being shed.
Yeah, we don't get any of that because it's not that kind of film.
No, I was gonna say it's not a detriment to the movie.
No,
it's just it's not that kind of film.
Yeah.
And just in case everyone's wondering at home, I believe we all watched the subbed version of this.
We did.
Yeah,
we did
no dubs on this one.
Yeah, no. I do have the dub, but I've never seen it. I have heard that the dub was substantially less impactful than the sub.
I'm tempted. I think the next time I watch this film, I'm going to find the dub just to see.
Because
the visuals aren't going to change, right? I want to hear how it goes. So.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the score.
The score.
I guess I can start this time, just because I haven't started yet.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 7, and mostly because you really only get like 2 real like songs in this film that aren't just like kind of like generic chase music or generic creepy music.
There's the one track that sounds like a JRPG boss battle.
Yeah,
I like that track, but it definitely has this like. So playing Chrono Trigger. What is this?
So the main track that you get was, which I guess is kind of the main theme, is like obviously you have the credit roll, and then it shows back up again whenever she goes into the dream sequence, like, and she jumps through the air, and she's
the song's like
the gold monkey. Yeah, and it's one of those things where like we don't get a lot of music in this film, but then whenever we do, it is utilized properly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just we don't get a lot of it.
I also gave it a 7.
Yeah.
For the exact same reasons. What I wrote down was I was like, some absolute bangers surrounded by some more generic sounding songs.
Yep.
Because like if you listen to just the soundtrack by itself, there's a lot of like just general background music.
But then you get like 2 or 3 that are just like, oh yeah.
2 or 3 that are like, yeah, they hit, they're good. But yeah, overall, I think all the music, even the generic stuff, fits the scene for what's happening.
Yeah.
But none of it, to me, is like elevates it to the level of like, oh, this is a soundtrack I'm going to listen to on repeat. You know, like, yeah. Steven, what do you think?
All right, I'm going to come in from the top rope here. I gave it a 9.
Oh, wow.
Dang.
So the parade.
He loves the parade theme.
The parade theme is just one of those things, one that absolutely will get stuck in your head.
He just has it listening on repeat.
As Ryan has already demonstrated, he can already repeat it. But it's also one of those songs where it gets used well, where you have moments where like the parade's around the corner, or you don't know, like they're like walking up to the window, but you can hear it already approaching, and you're like, okay, I know what's like I know where this is going.
Whenever they're in the movie theater and they sneak in quietly, and then you see the frog like lift up its symbol, and you're like, oh, here it comes.
Like it's just in the door. We're like, oh, you know it. I love that. I did also really like the usage, right? I think everything matched very well for what they wanted. There was no, discordant moments. And I got a little fun fact here for y'all. This is a factor in this as well.
Buckle up.
So the soundtrack of the film was one of the very first film scores to use Vocaloid for the vocals.
Oh, really?
So it's that's a synthesized vocal track.
So that's Miku, huh?
So they're creating vocals for music without having someone sing them.
That's fantastic.
So what that does is it adds an extra kind of uncanny valley to the vocals.
Maybe
where
that's
it's not
like a surreal,
right? Which I think is just such a perfect fit for what's going on in the film.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Like if there's any time to be like, yeah, we're gonna make music, but let's get weird with it. This is the moment, right? Like,
this is when to do it.
Yeah. So for me, that's almost worth like a point, basically, just for that.
That's really cool. I did not know that at all.
I do think, again, I came down off of perfect soundtrack, because it is something where if you just listen to it by itself,
it doesn't really like.
There's a lot of stuff that you could just be okay with,
Yeah.
unless you have what's going on screen, and then it's like, well, this fits right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and like sound design and I'll say Foley work and everything like that does come into this
it is
you know,
fact,
thing.
yeah.
And most of the time, like a lot of those kind of points don't really get brought up just because we don't like it was fine and there wasn't anything that really stood out to it. And I definitely will say like the work that they did of just like the parade itself is just absolute insanity.
It's just
Oh, yeah.
and that's what
Like-
you want, right? You just want bonkers, and that's what we get. So
Yeah. All right. So we're now on to the meat of the film. You
We've
know.
had the potatoes. Now let's move on to the meat.
I'm so glad I didn't make that joke because I really wanted to make that joke.
But yeah, so, obviously this is a very cerebral thriller. You have to have a good coherent plot to make it through all the way to the end and still have a satisfying finish.
Yes.
I'm curious at where you guys land on this.
I'll go first.
Yeah,
I gave it an 8.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
I like the plot. I
Yeah.
think it is definitely open-ended on some levels. They definitely don't explain, like in depth how the machine works.
Yeah,
There's
well,
no need.
you don't need to.
But I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
I could see some people being like hung up on. I know some of my friends would watch this and be like, they never told me how XYZ worked. And it's like, it's not that kind of movie.
Yeah, well, most Japanese films are not really like that anyway.
Boy, they love
Sure.
open-ended endings.
Yeah,
Boy,
they
Yeah,
do.
they love. I mean, really, for me, like the twists and turns as the mystery is kind of unfolding is very fun. And even though it's not a movie that gets a lot of character moments where there's a lot of acting, I like the character development and the arc that happens with each of them,
Well,
especially the detective.
Yeah.
Like his story, I'm like, it's like a mini story inside the story, and I'm like, I want a movie of just that. Give me that guy.
Yeah, because you really, because the whole time you're like, well, did he actually kill someone, or is it just his, analog of like, oh, I killed my older self because I became a police detective and I didn't follow my dreams, and blah 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 blah.
So that I like that whole thing. To me, what knocked it a little bit was just kind of the end. The ending of the movie definitely
little
shifts
wild.
into just anime territory.
Oh,
of like,
boy.
Now there's a giant dude who's made a crater in the middle of Japan, and
it's
he's
time
about
for
to.
Attack on Titan. It's
Yeah,
a big dude
it's
with
like-
no genitals.
Do you
Perfect.
remember the end of Princess Mononoke and the end of Akira? I don't know. Put some of that together and put some paprika on it.
Get
Let's
some
see what
weird
we cook
music
up.
going. Let's go.
It's funny too because the second that the chairman like grew big in
All he could see is Attack on
yeah,
Titan.
Holly was like, oh, this is the proto Attack on Titan.
So yeah, I gave it an 8. I think that, and I think the bad guy you can kind of see.
Oh,
who
you
it
can
is
see it pretty
coming.
early.
It's not one of those movies where you're
Yeah.
like, who could it be? It's like it's the creepy dude.
It's the creepy dude in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Who never smiles.
What did you think, Andrew?
I gave it a 7, basically for the same reasons.
Yeah.
The ending is a little bit too much for me, just because like everything up until this point was very much like a noir crime thriller ish,
Mm-hmm.
with obviously with some crazy stuff happening, but it wasn't so over the top to where you have like this giant guy and then you have like this weird amalgamation of Dr. Chiba and Tokita's daughter that then like sucks him up into nothingness, and
Yeah.
like there's just a lot of weird stuff that happens, and most of the time I'm okay with the weird, but it does very much turn into like, okay, yeah, this is we're pretty much at the end now, right?
Right.
Yeah, like but pretty much up until like I'll say like 90% of the film, like I'm all in.
Yeah.
And it was definitely like a 9 or an 8, and then like as it gets closer to that end,
Yeah.
and I've seen this film a couple times now, but yeah, you just get closer to that, and you're like, oh yeah, we still have to do this, don't we?
Oh, yeah, we got to get this out of the
Right.
way.
It's almost like they didn't know how to finish it or something.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know how the book
They're
originally.
like, I don't
the source
know,
material
get
is.
weird. Do something
Yeah, like,
funny.
I don't know if it was like, what do we do?
Yeah, Steven?
So I also gave it a 7.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of the same things we're saying here. We get to the end of the movie, and it's like Marvel just pops in. It's like, hey, remember me? Time
This
for
was
a
an
big
MCU show the
time
whole
for
time.
a big CGI robot fight fest. And it's just like, what's going on here, And then beyond that, it's not even, as straightforward as MCU finishing moves are, where you just punch each other, and then
Yeah.
the movie ends. We get really weird. It's just, we've been bizarre up to this point, and we were getting progressively more bizarre.
Yeah.
But in ways that I liked. Like, Paprika jumping into the moving van that has like the horses on it.
Oh,
And now
that's
she's
great.
riding a horse.
Yeah.
And stuff like that is great.
Oh yeah, that whole like sequence right there where they're jumping in and out of stuff was like
Perfect.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Well, and I sorry, I'll let you go in a second. I just love the initial realization that they're walking on the sky bridge, and they just and they just look over, and the doll's face is just right there.
right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And she's like, oh no.
Yeah,
And I don't need to know how the DC mini works. It goes on your head,
Yeah,
and like they even kind of get a little technical with it. We're like, oh, the ones that were stolen don't have the protective measures,
and it'll
installed.
suck into your brain.
right?
and-
It'll leach, and this can be an
Yeah.
issue. I had some issues with other things, kind of like the detective going to the website, and now it's like a fully immersive dream sequence. And it's like, is like Paprika abusing the fact that she can pull people in without having to wear it now that they've used it once? I don't know. Because that's a little too.
There's a little
Well, and
kind
there's
of
some stuff too when he's like
creative liberty.
when he's monitoring the dream, he's seeing it third person from the same
Yeah.
camera that they're
Yeah.
animating it from,
Yeah.
not like first person, which is like, why would you see it from a floating
Well,
third person camera? You
well,
know,
but
like,
that's the thing. You could definitely say that you don't always dream in first person.
No. But and that
there's
stuff is-
little things like that
Yeah,
that are kind of
that's
like
minor. I just think that the actual going to the bar was
Mhm.
so plot necessary, like it was so plot relevant
Mhm.
to things that he did, and then he's interacting with the two bartenders and stuff, where it was a little too immersive for what supposedly was happening. I just need a little extra explanation. Like he goes the first time, and then he's like, "What did you do to me?" or something. Like give me just a little extra here
Yeah,
of
Yeah.
how did this connection happen or something,
Yeah.
and I'm way more satisfied.
yeah. And since you just brought up the two bartenders,
Oh, yeah, we
I'm
got a fun fact
Yeah, I'm
this
gonna. So the tall bartender is just a caricature of Satoshi Kon,
Mhm.
and then the short bartender is Tsutsui, the original author of the novel.
Which I love bringing him in like that to do a voice. That's just a little fun,
Yeah.
Easter egg cameo type thing.
Yeah, and it's I think it's really important that you show kind of like where the heritage of the
Mhm.
original story and stuff came from. And I also like that they were minorly part of the movie where they kind of help out the characters and
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Well, it's also I think shows a lot of the respect given both ways from the two creators here
Yeah.
of Satoshi Kon's not just taking this and stripping it of all of its relevance and just using the bear or using the name to drive money, right?
Yeah, well,
Like,
and I know that whenever they agreed to do the film, Tsutsui actually said, "Do whatever you want."
Yeah.
like just full creative freedom. I just want you to do it.
I
Yeah.
mean, it fascinated me that he was the one who approached
Yeah,
Satoshi as like, hey, I really want to make my book into an anime.
yeah,
Because again, it's such an inverse process from what we're used to.
yeah. Which is Hollywood just destroying
Just-
every
just
every
break-
child's
Breaking the
book.
bones to get in there and dig out the marrow.
Yeah. So do we want to add anything else for plot?
I don't think
Anything
so.
else that kind of stuck out?
Nah.
No, I mean, I think for me, the only other thing that wasn't really a main factor, but kind of was similar to like the tiny issues is like they never really explain like, so is Paprika just a projection of her subconscious, or is she in control of what Paprika does?
It's almost like a split personality.
It's like
It
a
almost
split
was.
personality.
because the moment
did-
where she like warns Dr. Chiba from like
Yeah.
the back, like don't go,
Yeah.
like danger, or you shouldn't be here yet.
But it's like, did Dr. Chiba know that she gave the cop the website thing? You know what I mean? Like, there feels like there's like two characters in
Yeah,
one,
that
and
are
like,
kind of
are they
playing-
aware of what each other
Well,
is
and
doing?
Satoshi Kon loves doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, like you definitely like every single one of his films has a different dichotomy between the main characters and their perceived self and their real
Personas
self,
or- yeah.
which
Yeah.
is so like it's so refreshing because you really don't see that in a lot of other directors or movies that really come out. Like even in anime, because most of the time you have one character and they are that character.
Well, and
Right,
you
yeah.
desperately need, right? Like there's such an emphasis on recognizability that characters wear the same shirt for
Yeah.
10 years or whatever. So going full
Oh, come
on.
on, we're looking at you.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm
Looking directly at
I'm
you.
looking right at Shaggy. Bro, that shirt's got to smell by now. Change it. But or Dexter. I mean,
Yeah.
and they make fun of it with more modern stuff. But here, I think it's such a departure to say, well, our main character is a split personality, or however you want to look at it, and they look radically different. It's not just like, oh, Dr. Chiba takes her hair down and now she's Paprika. No, this is a very different look and a very different personality.
Well, and even whenever they do the transition from the credit roll to where she's driving in the car and it basically swaps between Paprika and Dr. Chiba, you still don't really know that it's actually a difference between
there's no
you don't know if
guarantee.
Paprika's not a real person yet.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Well, also, there's no guarantee that this isn't just a different scene. You just
Exactly.
Don't, you just don't know.
Yeah, and that's what makes his film so good. I think we're pretty much in entertainment at this
Yeah,
point.
I think we are. We can just
I was gonna let us throw in something that we like, because we tend to, when we say the plot, we give a score and then we talk about why we brought it down.
Okay, I'll raise my hand.
All right, go for it.
So I really like the this is basically the fight that Dr. Chiba has with Tokita right before kind of everything goes south, and he basically she throws the DC Mini on the ground, and she kind of has this speech about his indifference basically,
Right.
and how he kind of treats everything like he's a child, and and obviously it's when we get to the end of the film, it's more of a lover spat at that point than anything else. But it's definitely a character building moment for him where he's like, I need to take responsibility for this and try and at least fix it, even though I am clearly not prepared to do this.
I honestly like that moment just because of where he goes with it, because it had me going, no, don't do this. You're not ready for this, bro. Don't go in here like you got good intentions, but this can only end poorly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you guys? Moments, things,
Moments.
Something.
One moment that you liked.
Something in the plot. You gave it would you give it an 8?
You give it an 8?
Give it an 8.
I like the one you said. That's why
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another one.
I stole it. That's why I went first.
I really like the circus scene when
Yeah.
like the detective
Oh,
first
yeah.
gets
At the
there,
start.
and like at the very beginning, and when they come back to it later when he
And
revisits that.
all of his faces run towards him.
Like when all the faces
also very
run towards
Attack
him.
on Titan.
Yeah, also it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like the big kind of grotesque face.
yeah. And then, but when it starts to transition to the other dreams, like
Mhm.
that sequence and that plot beat right there is like primo for me.
Yeah.
I like that. Dude,
Y'all just taking all my stuff, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't know. What was great about the plot? Well, I like kind of the way that they play with the assistant,
Yeah.
Himuro, where it's kind of like this is the bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not actually the bad guy. He was just whatever his motives were, but also like the play like that initial kind of investigation. That
Yeah,
Dr.
where they go into
Chiba's
the
doing.
apartment.
Well, the apartment one,
Oh.
again, very Blade Runner,
Yeah.
right? With all the dolls and everything.
Mhm.
yeah,
But I love the way that they were able to play with kind of the dangers of what could happen, right?
Yeah.
Because we see our other doctor, not chairman, Shima.
Oh, yeah, Shima.
We see him go out the window, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of played off for laughs, right? Like this could be a horrifying moment. And he like, oh, well, the tree saved him and he's just beaten up a little bit. But then when she is in the dream and she goes to vault the railing,
Mhm.
and it's like this is actually like the vault like to throw you off the building.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, wow, this is really. And then later in the movie, when they're in that theme park, and she puts her hand on the railing, and there's that hesitation of,
yeah.
if I go over this, is this real or not?
Well, and that's one of those scenes where they have the
When I
really
was
poppy
watching it,
color.
I was like,
Yeah.
let him go over first. Just wait a minute. Tell the other guy to go over.
or be like, don't go over, just walk through it. You're big.
Yeah.
Knock it out of the way.
But yeah, that's one of those scenes where Kon uses the dream color from earlier to kind of trick you into be like, is this still a dream?
Because it's
Yeah.
it's a theme. It's an old theme park,
Yeah.
right? So all the colors were going to be bright there,
Mhm.
whereas like just your everyday street. So it's easy to play it off.
Yep.
Like it just stuff like that fits well. Okay, I think we are definitely now
in entertainment.
Who
Yeah.
wants to go?
I'll go. I gave it an 8.
All right.
This is definitely a film that I will absolutely rewatch again. But kind of like we talked about earlier, Satoshi Kon films are kind of one of those you watch probably about once every other year,
Yeah.
and you're good. There's a lot.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah. So I think one of my favorite things, and really this is just more of like a little like mini cameo and nod, is the spy movie dream sequence at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
Whenever they're on the train, that's just From Russia with Love.
I kept thinking it was a nod to that, but I was like, maybe there's like a Japanese film. I don't know.
She says, "Is this from a spy film?"
Spy film, yeah. But they couldn't get the rights for that. So, but they did get the rights for Greatest Show on Earth and Tarzan, obviously.
Yeah.
But they couldn't get the rights for From Russia with Love.
Yeah, no, it's a straight.
Come
rip
off
from
it,
that
Alfred
scene.
R. Broccoli.
You talk about broccoli.
What's this anime?
Yeah,
Japan.
Yeah, I mean, like just the editing and visuals alone are enough to rewatch this film multiple times.
Yeah,
especially I'll say like the first third of the film is just a masterclass in editing.
Yeah, that first third is killer.
Mm-hmm.
I also gave it an 8 on entertainment. Like I said before, it's not my favorite Satoshi Kon, but that doesn't mean anything. All Satoshi Kon movies are really good.
Are great, yeah.
I think it's like bizarre and surreal, and it's a lot of fun.
Yep.
And I think if you like any of the concepts that they even get close to delving into, it's a must watch. It's one I watch it probably once every few years.
Yeah.
It's not something I put on regularly, but like, I always enjoy it. It's my type of movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steven?
I gave it a 9.
Yeah.
It's me. Let's get weird. It hits that right balance of this is an interesting sci-fi concept of, creating a technology, the dangers, the attempt and necessity of control, and when the control fails. Right? That's classic sci-fi concepts. But then it's just sheer absurdist. There's these levels of whimsy, like the big bursts of butterflies that are basically all related to Osanai.
Yeah.
And then you have her trapped in the room with him where all the dead butterflies are pinned to the wall. It's like, like immediately you see this scene and everything about it screams unsettling, weird. Like they didn't have to say a word.
No,
they didn't have to show you any of the characters, and you already know I don't want to be in this room.
Yeah, well, and just that entire scene of basically him getting under her skin and running his arm up and basically unzipping her dream self into Dr. Chiba. Oh man, that is just that is intense.
But we get weird.
Oh yeah, it's real weird.
Yeah.
But I also really liked Tokata just in general.
I loved his unbridled enthusiasm.
Yeah. Well, also just it's so often in both in anime and also Western films or animation when you have the fat character, they're played for laughs, right?
Yeah.
Like, someone who comes immediately to mind is like Seuss.
Yeah.
From Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
He's there for laughs. Does he have a heart, and do they play with it later on?
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. But for the most part, he's comic relief.
Yeah.
Tokata is the genius inventor of this device.
Arguably the smartest person in the world.
Right, yeah. Like an incredibly intelligent, and he has other issues.
Yeah.
But usually when you have someone who is fat or morbidly obese, like it's a punchline, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of fun to see that difference, that different take there. And also kind of the playoff of it because, there's almost the comparison of him versus Dr. Chiba. And it's like, well, how is she attracted to him? Well, when she says it, right, it's not the outside. Like, there's something to work on there, sure, but it's the inside. And it's his childlike wonder and the actual genius that's there.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. That's refreshing to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to kind of add on that too, the only time that his obesity is kind of even joked at is when they're in the family restaurant and just like every dish that comes
is for him.
Well, it's for him, but it's really more just on a level of this is how he copes.
Yeah, well,
right.
also
with especially a stressful situation like this of like his device being stolen and they're trying to figure it out. And
also it's an anime, so if he's eating, then he's a good guy.
That is true. Yeah.
But they also do play it a little bit for laughs where he's stuck right at the beginning.
Yeah. And
I was actually, when that happened, I was like, oh man, really? We're just gonna crack these kind of like fat jokes. Oh, I'm stuck in the elevator door.
But then he's like, no, it's not because of that. It's because like I'm in trouble because
he says I'm in a bind, and she's like, oh, you're stuck, and he's like, no, it's not that.
Yeah.
But they also play it later where it's the same when he's transformed to the robot.
Yeah.
And it's the same scenario, and she helps him again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the expression of love.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much about this one. This is like y'all are like, yeah, I watch this like every couple of years. I'm like, man, I could watch this again tomorrow just because
Do it, I dare you.
Do it.
I doubt I had the time, but there's just so much going on that it feels like on rewatches, it's one of those things where you can see a different layer because it doesn't.
You definitely pick up more the second time.
Yeah, it doesn't just rely on one single twist. Like kind of like there's no like, oh, he was the bad guy all along. Dude, look at him. He's the bad guy. Everybody knows he's the bad guy.
There's a 0% chance he's not the bad
not
guy.
the bad guy. So like that's not the ooh, what a twist moment.
Yeah.
Everything else there though is kind of so layered in. Because like just going back and watching the scenes of the detective and him going through like his childhood friend and making the movie and he abandoned him, like just that set, like that's a movie on its own.
Yeah. The detective, we need a film for him.
And give me some black and white. Let's go.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan?
Oh, on entertainment?
Yeah.
I've already done mine. But
Did you?
Yeah, I give it 8.
I've been talking for so long.
Steven just kept going.
I'm just going.
I can go again. It's surreal. It's a lot of fun. I watch it every few years.
We just got so involved in that conversation. I got nothing.
Yeah. But we all give a score, right?
Yeah, we all did give a score.
Good.
Yeah. So that does sound like all the time we have. And, if you kind of like what you heard.
Kind of like. If you love it.
If you love what you heard, you should absolutely give us a nice, awesome 5-star review on Apple iTunes.
Yes.
Preferably. It can be anywhere else.
Anywhere you listen
Anywhere
to podcasts.
you listen. But man, if you listen on iTunes, that help a lot.
Yep. So that's always nice. However, the best way to support the show is through Patreon for just as low as $1 a month.
One measly buck.
You can keep the lights on. You can help our hosting fees. And what you get for that is, at minimum, one episode or one bonus episode a month that is going to be completely different than what we normally do. We have rankings. We have tier lists. We have random discussions about...
just arguments.
Just arguments,
It gets contentious.
Yeah, like, do you ever... catch yourself driving home from work and you're like practicing an argument that you might have. Why do that when you can listen to 3 people have real arguments for $1?
Where it just sounds like Andrew and Ryan were stuffed in a telephone booth and Steven's standing on the outside poking them with a stick to see if he can get them to fight each other.
Specifically about James Bond opening music.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you want to hear 2 grown men screech at each other in very high-pitched voices while Steven laughs and then throws salt onto the wound that is happening... $1 you'll get
just $1 there. But yeah, seriously, thanks for listening. As always, I'm Andrew.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Steven.
And every spoiler was intended.